Hey guys, thanks for sticking around. This is one of my favorite bonus sessions. It is the session where you keep learning. This one is sponsored by our friends at Platypod because it features platypods, but it features a lot more. There's a lot of learning, and I've already had a preview of what's coming up, and it will be presented by our friend and the inventor of the platypod, Dr. Larry T. And before I actually toss the program to him, I want to tell you that you get to ask questions. So during this session, now during the other classes, and I've told you this too, there's the Q&A in the chat, and you guys can ask questions during the session, but they're probably not going to be answered during the session. Well, during this session, yeah, that's one of the things that we're going to do. You're going to find that there are Platypod representatives, people that work at and for and with Platypod, and some famous artists that you'll recognize also work with Platypod. Well, they're going to be in the chat and the Q&A, and they're going to be monitoring and answering whatever questions that they can, but also the control room is going to be sending me some additional questions that haven't been answered, and then Dr. T and I will try and tackle those, and it's mostly going to be him and not me. And with that, Dr. T, you have a great presentation lined up for us this evening. You're going to tell us about some cool equipment, and some of it has nothing to do with platypods. It's just cool equipment for travel photographers and some tips and tricks and behind the scenes that we all love.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to be back at another KelbyOne conference, and thank you all for joining me. If you're eating your dinner right now, please keep eating. We are on here live, and as Larry said, we'd love to take your questions. Gosh, I've got a whole bunch of new things to go over with you. A whole bunch of new tips and tricks, stuff that you haven't heard before. Some of it you may have heard before, but the photos are almost all brand new, and I think we'll have some fun together for the next hour. So let's kind of dive right in. First of all, there's a lot of things going on at Platypod, a lot of new things. If you want to be up on the latest here, new items that we're offering, special offers, please go to platypod.com. Sign up for our email list. We don't send out a whole lot of stuff, one newsletter a month with 3 photographers featured in each newsletter. I guarantee you'll learn something from that, and also you'll catch all the latest information, latest offers. So please check that out. And also one little announcement, on Wednesday, November 9th, my buddy Skip Cohen and my other buddy Dave DeBearmaker, the toy photographer, who's done some classes on KelbyOne, are going to be on the grid live, and I encourage you to please show up live on the grid, and there will be prizes, there will be all kinds of cool things, and again, some announcements made. So please look forward to that. Again, I believe it's 1 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, November 9th, on the grid live. Well, I'm assuming that most of you know what a platypod is. It's the world's most compact tripod base, and we're going to show you today a lot of things that Platypod does. We are also going to talk about some other non-platypod equipment, just as Larry said, and I'm sure you will pick up something new on this talk. What's the advantage of Platypod? If you don't know already, numbers 1, 2, and 3 is portability, portability, and portability. Look, I can take the new Platypod Extreme, and hey, if you have the Platypod Max, it is still quite effective and usable, but I'm going to show you, and I'm going to focus more on the Extreme and also on the new Platyball a little bit to show you the advantages of what that can do for you in your travel photography. And portability, goodness, I can stick this and just in my pocket, or you can put it in your camera bag just in a pocket there, or hang it off to the side, and it doesn't have to take up the space of a telephoto lens that you might want to take with you, or other equipment. So you're going to find that this is so handy. Image sharpness. Now, if you don't already know Joe McNally's trick of sticking your camera into your left shoulder, cradling the lens with your left hand underneath it, and shooting like this, you got a nice stable hold. Yes, you can get good stable pictures, but for ultimate sharpness, there's nothing like using a tripod or a platypod. Now, when you're going on vacation, as you may have heard from some of the other speakers, especially Scott Kelby, you know that when you go indoors, especially into a church or synagogue, or into a museum or a lot of other public places, tripods are not allowed. The tripod police keep you out. Platypods get into places where tripods don't. And if you have to choose between a tripod, which I think is a great studio tool, or a platypod, this will be your better travel tool. Platypods enable you to get the lowest angle possible. So if you want to bring in foreground or get that hero look of whatever subject you're taking, you're going to see many examples of that in the slide presentation. Platypod's the best way to go. You don't have to flip upside down a center column on your tripod and stand on your head to take a picture. You take the platypod, you put it on the ground, or if you're on rock or concrete, you just deploy the spikes in the platypod and it will grip without any jitter or shake. Platypod also gets you into tight spaces, nooks and crannies. You'll hear some of the other photographers talk about framing your shot. Maybe from inside your hotel room, framing with the window. If you're in an old building or a cave, framing with the opening of the cave. Well, Platypod allows you to get into those tight split spaces so that you can frame appropriately. It'll work with all your existing equipment, so whatever tripod head that you have, you can adapt onto a Platypod. If you have any difficulty with it ever, just call us or write to us at service@platypod.com. You can find us through the website, and we can help you as far as getting your equipment to work. But you'll find practically every tripod head is going to work with a Platypod. The setup is so fast, and I just want to show you this quickly with the Extreme. I'm going to close in here a little bit. Now, Max was great. It came with its own spikes mounted right on board, and you could just put it in here. So if you're on rock or concrete, you could just screw it right in. But if you wanted to screw them in all the way, then balance it, it could sometimes take a minute or two to deploy this. This is why I went ahead and invented the Platypod Extreme, because now I can set this up with all 4 spikes fully deployed in 3 seconds flat. Let me demonstrate. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, I'm set up. And the trapezoidal shape that's formed by the legs and the plate allow you to get ultimate stability. And then maybe you'll have to adjust one of these a little bit if you're on a sort of jittery surface, but then you get really good stability, and you mount on your tripod head right on there, and you are ready to shoot in a matter of seconds. Also very, very easy to put away when you're done. Everything that Platypod is made of is waterproof, rust-proof. We have aircraft-grade aluminum for the plate, stainless steel screws, titanium bolt for the main central bolt. So you'll find you could take this home from the beach and just wash it with soap and water. And it's super adaptable to rocks, as we said, to trees or poles. You can hang it with one of our straps that's available in the Platypod multi-accessory kit, and just adapt it onto anything. If you want to take super long exposures, you want to do time lapse or multiple exposures, as you will see in some of the images. Larry, any comments before we get into the slideshow?
Yeah, actually, for the people that aren't really familiar with platypods, and that's not many of you, but I know there are some that are like, this is new. I want to make sure that you understand this is a platform to hold a ball head. It holds all kinds of standard ball heads. You know, the top connector on any tripod is a 3/8" bolt, and that's what Dr. T was just showing. And so if you're going, well, this is new, and do I have to get a Platy ball? Well, whatever ball head you have right now, it's very, very, very likely that it will automatically fit onto the Platypod and be just exactly what you would expect it to be. And in just a little while, you're going to see that Dr. T will show that you can do the Platy ball like he has available, or some of the other options that are out there for platypods, the other types of ball heads and things like that. And the different kinds of things, it's I guess what I'm trying to say in a few words is it's already compatible with all kinds of other photography gear that's out there. This is not its own new universe. So hopefully that helps explain a little bit.
Thank you, Larry. And so let's dive right into the slideshow. I hope you enjoy it. And again, please, if you have questions and you just want to ask them informally and speak to one of our Platypod ambassadors, just put it right in the chat. If you have a question that you would like Larry or me to answer, put it into the Q&A. And when we get to the end of the presentation, I'll try to address everybody's questions. So here we go. Again, for those of you just joining us, I want to welcome everybody to the KelbyOne 2022 Travel Photography Conference. And as it relates to the Platypod ecosystem. And again, I invite everybody to take a look at our website. We have plenty of information, videos. We've got a wonderful blog site. We put up 2 new blogs every single week. So for those of you who say, hey, I got a Platypod, but I just don't know what to do with it, go to the blog site. You will get dozens and dozens and dozens of ideas of what you can do with your Platypod, from travel photography to toy photography, food, products, wildlife, all kinds of things. And I think it will enhance your photographic skills. For our first image, this is one I've shown in the past at some Kelby conferences, but I'm showing it again to drive home the point. If you see in the right lower panel there, Larry, what's the first set of words there in red and white?
I can't see it from my view. Sorry. Oh, it says no tripods. I got you.
No tripods.
Yeah.
So this is a beautiful image taken by Samantha Kennedy of the angel oak tree in Johns Island, South Carolina. This oak tree is probably the oldest one east of the Mississippi River, 300 to 400 years old. It spans 25 feet and it shades over 17,000 square foot area. No tripods allowed. You want to take this from a low angle, or you've got a bunch of people around there and you want to eliminate some of them. We're going to show you a little trick later from the Leaning Tower of Pisa, how Dave Williams eliminated a bunch of the crowd there by doing multiple exposures. So stick around for that. But this is an ideal platform to shoot on, and again, super compact to take with you. Scott Kelby loves using platypods when he goes into churches, museums, synagogues, and other indoor tourist sites where no tripods are allowed, and you want to get the lowest angle possible to bring in the foreground of a beautiful floor or the furniture in the room, as well as going all the way up to the ceiling. You put a platypod on the ground, as Scott is doing in the right panel that you can see, and he's just sitting in a pew with his smartphone that's connected to the via Wi-Fi or Bluetooth to his camera, so he can view the image in the smartphone and fire off the camera so that he's not in that photo. Wide angle, super wide angle lens, 14 to 24 millimeter, pitched upward, and you get one amazing shot. And also, if you want to do HDR, take multiple images and blend them later, this is a great way to do that. This is me on a recent trip to Israel in a beautiful stalactite cave that's part of the nature reserve system there. And there's a few points to make here. They let you spend about 20 minutes in the cave. Absolutely no tripods are allowed because you have a rather narrow walkway and set of steps that people are going through. But what was cool for me here was I was able to set up my platypod on a makeshift tripod by using the stanchions and ropes that were in here. So just to give you an idea, everywhere along the way, there was a vertical steel pole that was curved at the top with a maritime type heavy, thick rope winding tightly right through that stanchion. So between the rope and the stanchion, I was able to perch my Platypod Extreme so that the toe was on the metal part of the stanchion and the 2 spikes were into the rope, absolutely rock solid. And I was able to get a long exposure in this horrible low light. I mean, this was sodium lamps lighting up this place. The color was absolutely horrific, and hence I did my final photo in grayscale of this stalactite from the ceiling meeting up with a stalagmite at the bottom, just about to form a column. There's a few millimeters in between these two with little droplets of water. When you blow this up big, the detail in here and the grayscale gradations is just beautiful in this image. And that was enabled by having just a beautiful, stable platform to work from. This image from our friend who likes to be known as Vanelli, Robert Vanelli, who works now with Skylum and Luminar, took this image of the Edinburgh Castle in Scotland, and he wanted a nice stable image from a low angle, taken with a platypod. You can tell it was raining at the time, and the light was rather dim. This way he was able to get a super stable image even at a slower shutter speed. When you shoot from a low angle, here's a little tip. When you want to shoot mountains from a low angle and make them look really big, shoot with a telephoto, not a wide angle. The wide angle lens will make everything look a little smaller. Going telephoto makes everything look a lot bolder. He did a sky replacement here in Luminar. You can also do that in Photoshop, but Luminar is a great tool for doing this with. Larry, did you have a comment on this?
It was just amazing to me that the Platypod and the camera are just low in the foreground on that little stair step, and how the I guess it's a castle is just at a distance. And by doing what you were talking about, the telephoto lens, you cut out the entire environment and you set up and create a new foreground. And that's something that you probably can't do handheld. You just have to be looking for that different kind of shot. And with the longer lens like that, that's just amazing that you can get that kind of shot, and you need that stable platform to be able to pull it off.
Sure, Larry. And once you're shooting at 200 to 300 millimeters, you need that stability. Now, if everyone sticks around a little bit, I'm going to talk about my number one favorite travel lens, all-purpose travel lens. And this was a tip that I got years ago from the famous photographer Jay Maisel, New York photographer. And Jay actually wrote about this in one of his books. But stick around. We'll talk about the number one, my number one pick for a travel lens. But let's proceed. All right, here's an image from Deb Sandage. And before I go back to this image, you'll look quickly at the right-hand panel to see how she's set this up in Times Square. And I just want to show you myself how this is done. So we're going to go to my close-up camera, and I'm going to bring in Platypod. Now, a lot of people have asked, well, I know that Platypod can shoot 45, the Platyball, our new Platyball, can shoot 45 degrees down, 45 degrees up, but it can also go 90 degrees to either side. Well, how do I shoot straight down? Well, it's rather simple. You go to the side, and then you rotate the panning stage till your lens faces straight down. You can do that from a tripod, okay? Or if you have this up on a higher platform, such as a stanchion or a railing. What if you want to shoot vertically? So what I recommend is point the Platypod to the toe of the plate. And this works really great with Platypod. Then take your camera, and you can mount any Arca mount on this. I like to use, for this kind of shot, our Arca disc, because it goes on so easily. It needs no tools, no D-rings like the other Arca plates do, no Allen wrenches, just spins right on. And since it's round, I don't even have to deal too much with the panning stage. I can just immediately rotate it, turn it in the direction that I want, lock it in place, and look how it holds really nicely. Now, this lens and camera balance really well. If you have a much heavier camera, you may have to put down, a weight, maybe another lens or part of your camera bag down over here to give you extra stability. But this one holds, perfectly. And this is how you set up this type of shot. Now, Deb shot this image with a fisheye lens. I think it's 8 or 10 millimeters on this, but this brings you in a full 180 degree field of view and was able to get this beautiful image right in Times Square.
Knee-jerk reaction that I have is, how can you see, and I know the answer, but how can you see the LCD to set up the picture, or how can you see through it?
Great question. Larry, it's the same solution that Scott Kelby had in the last one.
Yep.
Most of the cameras today allow you to communicate with a smartphone, and you just bring up the image on the smartphone, and you can fire off your camera from that smartphone as well.
I do it from, yeah.
All right.
That works.
Well, I'm very proud to say that we were just recently in Birmingham, England, for TPS, very cleverly named The Photography Show. 15,000 attendees in September, and about 150 vendors. And we were awarded by Digital Camera World, and this is Rod Lawton, one of their writers, presenting me with the award for Best in Show. And I'll tell you, I almost cried when he came up and told me about this. Digital Camera World is the largest English language photography magazine in Europe and one of the sponsors of the photography show. So this was a proud moment for us. The show, however, had to close. It was on for Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. They had to close on Sunday because of Queen Elizabeth's funeral. All of England was shut down. So my friend Dave Williams comes up to me and says, Larry, we need to be back by 11 a.m. For Monday, but would you like to go on an adventure? I said, okay, I'll go for an adventure. There's nothing else to do that day. What would you like to do, Dave? So he said, well, we'd like to take a trip up to Stratford-upon-Avon. We meaning him in his van known as Caffifernway, which he's basically gutted out a 2011 Mercedes van and outfitted it so he can live in it for 2 years and travel all over Europe. And his other friend, British photographer Peter Treadway, took this bike, which he had built, a carbon fiber 7-pound bike, and rode his bike 25 kilometers from Birmingham to Stratford-upon-Avon, and we met up there. So we come across, let me get to this next image here. We come across this interesting house. Now, disregard the biker there for a second. That's Peter. I'm looking at this house, and I said, oh, this really has a lot of character. How nice. We were really lucky because the entire plaza here was empty because everybody was home because of the day of the funeral. And I said, but I want it to look a little more interesting. So there's Peter with his bike. Why don't I get Peter kind of speeding across this house, combining the old, the new, these really bright colors that he's wearing, and let's see how that works out. So I had Peter driving back and forth, and in one set of images, you can see the top left, Peter's just entering the scene. I have this firing off at 7 frames per second on my Nikon D800. The lens is set to about 55, 60 millimeters, and I'm at about 160th of a second because I didn't want a perfectly sharp image of Peter. I wanted a little bit of motion blur, and I didn't want to have to extract him in Photoshop and create the motion blur. I wanted that to be natural. So I'm shooting off, boom, boom, boom. You go from upper left to upper right to lower right. I'm sorry, lower left and then lower right. And in that lower right image, when I looked at this in my viewfinder after this was shot, I said, I just nailed it. And why? Because of the composition. In the upper right hand, he's entering the scene. You have a horizontal beam going kind of right across his head. The next image, lower left, also similar type of thing. It's nice. It would have been a satisfactory image. But when he goes into the next frame, lower right-hand corner, you can see his head perfectly framed under the eaves of the entrance to the building. And I have to tell you, I've printed this up big. It's an amazing image. The building itself is tack sharp, but you have just that little bit of motion blur. And if you can see, I'm sitting there with my Platypod. Actually, it was Dave Williams' Platypod on the ground with my camera on there on a Platypod. And the Platypod enabled me to set this up so quickly. I didn't have to fiddle with any buttons or dials or anything. I was able to level it immediately, and we'll show you that in a second, how you level with a Platypod in case you haven't seen that before. Final image, there we are. And I have to tell you, when printed large, the detailing here is amazing. Interestingly, you can see towards the upper right, kind of another window and some sticks going across left and right, up and down through there. Those sticks are basically the structure of the wall. And they took away the plaster just to show you how everything was built. So when we're walking away, I say, that was a really cool old house. And he said, Larry, that was William Shakespeare's house. I said,
wow.
Oh, that's really, really cool.
Yeah, that
I've got
is.
this amazing picture that I am super proud of. And I just wanted to show you for a second how to use the Platypod. I'll take just 1 minute, and we're going to show you this close. First of all, Platypod, we've gotten rid of all the confusing and obstructive dials that you have on most ball heads. We flip the ball head upside down, which allows you even panning. And again, go to our website to see how this works for you, so that when you have the panning at the top, no matter how level or unlevel the base is, the panning will always be nice and level. And then just using the buttons, I can immediately adjust tension, level off, and then using the world's first LED leveling indicator. Let's flip that on. It's just so easy to get this leveled off. Now I'm kind of working backwards, but here we go. And you can see line up 4 arrows in the middle, and you're nice and level. So between the Platypod Extreme and the super fast Platypod ball head, we've got everything leveled off in no time. And if you don't feel you need the level, you want to use the one in your camera, you just want to use your eyeballs, we have the Platypod Ergo that comes without the level. You'll save some money, but otherwise they're all equal. Any questions or comments, Larry?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is to help people understand a little bit more about how this is a different ball head than any other ball head out there. It is exactly what you said, those knobs and levers and things like that, they aren't on there. And so you're wondering, well, how do you do that? And most everything is you either turn to lock at the top, or to change the angle of the ball head itself. You saw Dr. T pressing a couple of buttons. I want to point out that that's mechanical. It's not electronic. They're not like pushing a button and hoping that some gears inside will lock. It's not that at all. It's mechanical. And you'll get a feel for it too. And again, I don't want this to be a deep dive on the Platypod, but it is so cool. I've been able to do things with the Platypod I can't do with other ball heads. And specifically, I can get to just the right tension so that it's got a good grip for the weight of the camera that I have on top of it. And then I can tip the camera and let go, and it stays. It sticks at that angle. Yes, I could tighten it more. Yes, I could loosen it more and have it be real smooth and easy to move around. But there's this perfect pressure for each individual camera based on the weight of the camera. You get it to just that right pressure, and you can very easily do that. And then you can tip it to the angle that you want, and it'll stick there. It's just one of the cool features that I love about the Platypod.
Now, I promised everybody I was going to mention briefly my favorite travel lens. And again, this is one that Jay Maisel likes to use for street photography. This is the Nikon 28-300 AFS lens. It goes from a f-stop of 3.5 to 5.6. And being able to go from 8 millimeters wide angle to 300 millimeters telephoto one lens, that's pretty amazing. But what's more amazing, and I was blown away by this, and so this is what Jay said also, the sharpness on this lens was unbelievable. I took that image of Peter Treadway on the bike with this very lens. Now, if you have a different camera, look up with the best lens in this range, but I very much would recommend. And now, when I go on vacation now, I just put a little spider holster knob on this, hook it to my belt, and I walk around like that. I do recommend if you're traveling, put a lens hood on. Not so much that it makes a difference for your photos, but for protection of your lens, it's really a good idea. I'd much rather bump into something with this than hit the front filter element with that.
Dr. T, during your explanation, you said the wide angle is 8 millimeters. I think that's...
No, 28.
28.
Sorry, that got cut off. It was 28 to 300 millimeters.
There you go. Yeah, that's a fantastic lens and a great range.
All righties, let's go to the next image. Oh, I'm sorry, and one other point I wanted to bring up here is when you're traveling and you want to get what I call the wall hanger, which would be this image here, don't forget to take background shots of the people that you're traveling with. And here you can see Dave Williams with his van at the bottom middle, me with Peter and Dave at the upper right having a snack after this photo shoot, or Dave posing with Peter and his bike. Get the background, because besides bringing that one beautiful image that you want to bring, you also want to tell a story of your vacation, and make sure, even if you're using your iPhone or other smartphone, make sure to get lots of images to tell your story.
Yeah, I think, Dr. T, I think that's actually something Elia was talking about in his class today, was the whole experience, not just the pictures you're taking, but to be involved in the whole experience. And it's nice to hear you say that as well.
Yeah, and to echo that again, here we are at breakfast, myself and my lovely wife, Minna, and we're just sitting at breakfast. Now, if I wanted to do this as a selfie, I would get this super wide angle image with my phone at arm's length distance. I don't think those are that great. Here, I have it perched on the table. You bring in a little foreground with the food, and there's no tripod for waiters to trip over or for you to get yelled at, and you get a nice image. And I just set this on a 10-second timer, lined up the picture, went around, sat down, smiled, took 3 images, and honestly, they were all good images to use. So don't forget, shoot the food, shoot your breakfast, shoot yourself, and get the story told of your vacation for your scrapbook. Now, I want to show you how light plays in. This is a set of images from Samantha Kennedy, and no, this is not the final image. I'm going from, okay, this is kind of what your average tourist would shoot. Not that great exposed. There's not beautiful light here or anything. It's a picture of the Watchman Mountain in Zion National Park, and that's about it. 18 minutes before sunset is when the magic happens. A few minutes before, several minutes after. And same thing around sunrise. This was taken at sunrise. And here we go. The sky starts lighting up. The colors start coming in. So we go from okay to better, and now to a beautiful final image before sunrise. Or you could do this after sunset. But now you've got a camera that's on a Platypod, and Samantha actually had this perched on a vertical pole here. But you can see the path leading in. You've got foreground. You've got the mountain middle ground, and you've got the sky in the background. And this is a beautiful landscape image that you've just taken on your vacation. A lot to be learned. Now, do notice the mountain looks smaller here in a wide-angle view than it does here in a telephoto view. So you have to decide as the photographer, what are you trying to project? Are you trying to project the size of the mountain, or are you trying to present a wide landscape image? But you have choices. Next one, is also from Samantha, demonstrating one other concept, and that is telling the story. Now, Samantha sent in a few images from this scene. They were all lovely, but this one with the bird perched up there on that beautiful, in this beautiful scene, just looking wistfully out onto the ocean on this wood piling. It just creates and evokes emotion. And you can see how she had this set up nice and stable, and you don't have to drag around a big tripod, because at every waterfront, you're going to find fences, you're going to find rocks, you're going to find a place to place a Platypod, and you'll get the image that you want. Now, our very own Jason Stevens, who is sitting in the control room right now, KelbyOne engineer, was on vacation in Venice. You can obviously see the tower in Venice in the background. And Jason wanted to tell his own story of just the harmony and the the serenity is the word I'm looking for, serenity in this scene, with the boat kind of rocking back and forth and the water looking real smooth. You do this by taking a long exposure. And then he had his Platypod, I think it's a Max, Jason, time to upgrade, and that's sitting right on the concrete at the edge of the water with this long exposure. Now, here's a little tip that's got nothing to do with Platypod. If you want to shoot long exposures, I'm sure some of the other speakers have spoken about it, you're going to need an ND filter to bring down the light level to let you go out to a very long exposure, especially if it's during daytime. Now, I use a 6X ND filter. Some people like a 10X ND filter. If you don't know what that means, look up ND filters. There's plenty of information about it. But the reason I choose 6X, because with a 10X, it's really hard to see through your viewfinder and focus. With a 6X, I can still accomplish that. So that's what the 6X ND filter looks like. This one's from Breakthrough Photography that claims and achieves neutral color with a ND filter. But a little trick I want to show you is to carry this. I bought on Amazon. These are pretty cheap. These little metal lens caps, front and back, for my filter. And this way, I just carry it like this. It is indestructible. You will never damage your filter. And then you don't have to deal with filter wallets, which I find get kind of dusty. You end up having to put your fingers in to pull out the lens, and that can be a little bit of an issue. I recommend getting an ND filter for your largest lens. I was using up to 82 millimeters, and that's the size this is. But most of my lenses, including the one I just showed you, has a 77 millimeter filter front. So all you need to do is get a step-down adapter like this. The reason you always want to step down instead of stepping up is because if you use a smaller filter and put it on your larger lens with a step-up filter, you're going to get vignetting at the corners. So if you have to buy one filter, buy it for your larger lens and then deal with the step up or step down. And the other thing I recommend getting is an expo disc. Look this up. What this allows you to do is to place this right over your lens, point it up at your light source, whether it be artificial lights, clouds, sky, or sun, and get perfect manual white balance every time. And this way, when you go back into Photoshop, you don't have to sit and balance out every photograph. These are very useful tools. I do recommend taking them along for travel.
Dr. T, I wanted to bring up something that you don't know about, and that is I was talking with Jason since we've been doing this particular event. I was talking to him today, and Jason brought up the point that he just got back from Tuscany, and he was all over the place with Scott and had some amazing images. And I was commenting about his images, and he was telling me about his use of the Platypod. And what he said was, almost everywhere he went, in fact, he said, everywhere I went, all I needed was the Platypod. I did not need a tripod at all for all of my photography. So he's doing this travel photography with Scott, and he didn't need a tripod at all. He had a tripod. He's a videographer who was helping Scott by shooting video during this project. But during this whole project, for his photography, he never needed the tripod. He only always used his Platypod. He was using it on posts and poles and on the ground quite a bit, but just all over the place, there was always some way to use the Platypod. And one other thing he was pointing out, and you've alluded to this as well, and that is it doesn't draw a lot of attention. It's there, your camera's on it, it's on the ground by your feet or whatever while you're standing there and you're taking the picture, but it's not drawing the attention of security guards and, I guess, prospective thieves or what have you, that might look at something on a tripod or get upset because you're using the tripod. And the tripod police, yeah, we use that as a tongue-in-cheek term, but it really is kind of a thing. Security guards all the time. It's just all the time I'm being stopped if I use a traditional tripod. Hey, you can't use that here. Take it off the sidewalk. Who gave you permission? You know, those kinds of things. And I'm talking about in public places. And so having the Platypod is just a great way to go. And Jason's recent trip was, it was unnecessary to have a tripod at all.
Now guys, don't go and throw away your tripods.
No, it's true.
True. Tripods. I use them in the studio all the time. But just as Larry said, you'll find on vacation, tripods will work in about 50% of your situations. Platypods will work in about 98% of your situations.
Yeah.
So if you have to choose one tool, I think it's the one to choose. But when I'm doing studio work and product work and stuff, I use tripods all the time too, and they're fine. Don't throw it away yet. Okay, let's go to our next image. This one is from Bob Coates, and Bob's just showing how you can easily use the Platyball and the Platypod Extreme. When you're out in the desert, there's always a rock or a surface to put it on, and he got this beautiful Milky Way image out in the Sedona area. And again, when you're dealing with a mountain range, you really can't tell where the horizon is. So having the LED indicator in the Platyball Elite for quickly determining your horizon is really, really a big help over here, for especially for night photographers. The next image, also from Bob, is to illustrate a few things. And I'm going to show this yet in another image from Dave Williams. When you want to do panoramas, shoot vertical. Let me explain that in a second. I'm going to pull out here for 1 second. And that is, so you take your Platypod, your Platyball, or whatever tripod head you are using. I highly recommend for this purpose, although I love the Platypod disc, for this purpose, have an L bracket on your camera. And I don't know if you can see, I have my L bracket over here. One that's ARCA compatible will fit on the Platyball. And we've tested this with almost every brand of ARCA L brackets and have never had an issue. When you mount the camera vertically instead of horizontally, and you're shooting pano, so you take one image, overlap 30 to 40%, overlap, and you can just overlap visually or using a number indicator like we have over here. When you do that vertically, you're increasing your vertical resolution by about 50%. If your horizontal resolution is, let's say, 300 pixels, your vertical resolution will be at about 650. 6,500. So I'm sorry, when horizontal is 3,000 pixels, vertical will be about 6,500. That way, when you're shooting from top to bottom, you've got so many more pixels to deal with. When you get back home and you print this up super large, you can plaster your whole wall with this, and you're going to have an incredibly sharp image. So you can see what Bob did over here. He actually took this first top image right before sunset. And the reason he did that, because he knew he was going to sandwich this together with the nighttime shot, but at night, you have no color in the mountains. Just before sunset, you've got incredible color. And with proper blending techniques, Bob was able to bring the two together, the nighttime star-filled image together with that little bit of color in the mountains for an incredible pano. This, by the way, Bob told me was 12 images that were brought together, and it's kind of outside of the range of what we're talking about tonight, but you can look up a lot of information about how to shoot panoramic images and how to process them in Photoshop. Larry, any comment there?
I just am blown away by the whole work product that he has going on here. And, you look at something like that, I would have traditionally looked at something like that and said, oh, well, somebody's got really bright lights and they're light painting. That's an impossible task, as giant as that landscape is. And as far away as it is, the brightest bright lights, you could never light paint what it is to create that final image. So you actually literally must do a gorgeous pano, but on a steady platform to create that pano, and then consistently do it again from the exact same position with the exact same kind of, well, you could have different overlap, but your finished image is going to still look the same, because in Photoshop you're able to stack those images and build them out as a 12-image panorama. So you've got two 12-image panoramas, and then you stack those as a single image over a single image. And then you blend, like Dr. T was showing us, the beautiful sky. And, you just can't get in your head how much is involved in this and how simple this process is with the right equipment.
So let's show another example of this technique. And again, Platypod makes this so easy because of the advanced panning function. Having the panning on the top, you don't have to worry about your tripod legs. You don't even have to worry about the platypod itself being level, because as soon as you level the platyball, it will remain level throughout the shot and not drift off to the side. So this is Bob's setup for that shot. And Dave Williams did a similar type of thing here at Hyfoss Waterfall in Iceland. And to get a long exposure with the flowing water, similar to what Jason did in his image using an ND filter and lengthy exposure, Dave also did, I think this is about 3 or 4 vertical images that he did. And you can see his camera is perched vertically. But this is something that pano photographers across the world, the top photographers, all know. Shoot vertically when you're shooting panoramics. You will increase your vertical resolution by 50%. Here's another image I mentioned to you before that I was going to present from Dave. Now, I don't know if this comes through too well on this, but if you look closely at the image on the left, there's a whole bunch of tourists going all over the place near the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And Dave wanted to create more of a mood. So to eliminate these people, you can't ask them all to just move because they're not going to. And so what he did was he shot a series of about between 30 and 50 images, stacked them into Photoshop, and used the statistics median calculation. If you don't know how to do that, look up median statistics in Photoshop and how to do this. But what that does is it takes anything that moved between those 30 to 50 shots and makes them disappear. And his final image shows just one woman sitting down in front of the doorway in the lower, off to the right center, and creates a mood and a story and not simply a tourist attraction. Dave did another interesting statistics calculation here using the mean statistics calculation. And again, you may need to look that up. What I wanted to show you here before I go into the image a little bit more is what Dave did with his Platypod Extreme, and that was he turned out just 2 of the spikes, okay, then perched that. It was a vertical railing in this one. So the rail was not flat, giving you a lot of surface area here, but it was vertical. So he hung it over here, and then he strapped around it using a Platypod strap. Now, he had to hike up about a mile to this site, and then once he's got this perched on, then you take the Platyball, go vertically with the Platyball like this, mount the camera here. Now the camera is looking over the top of the railing. Let's go back to the image, and you'll be able to see that in the right-hand side, how Dave set this up. And this was shot at the Landwasser Viaduct in Switzerland. This is the world's highest railway. And again, Dave had to march up about a mile to get to this viewpoint, and didn't want to have to drag along a heavy tripod with him. So he just had this hanging off his backpack. So what Dave did in the 2 images, one is a standard image on the left-hand side of the train coming out of the mountain. The image in the middle is a train was actually coming out of the mountain, kind of looks like it's going into the mountain, but using the mean filter, it blended together, a dozen or so images into one long ghost-like trail going into this mountain. And I thought that was just a very cool thing. A matter of taste, a matter of what you want to project, but this is something that you can play around with your own imagery. Brian David Casey shot this lovely image of the cherry blossoms at the University of Washington. Now, Brian's a 6'7" tall guy, and had he taken this from shoulder height, as most of us would shoot this image, he would have missed the boat on this. Whenever you see a puddle of water and you've got your camera with you, crouch down, look around, see what that water is reflecting, and you will find a beautiful image in many of these cases. Yes, we've often mentioned that our friend Rick Salmon suggests carrying around a gallon of water in your car trunk, and you can spill it out anywhere and create a puddle. But obviously, if you're on vacation, that's not such an easy thing to do. But by getting the lens almost touching the water, you can create what looks like a lake with a beautiful, placid reflection, such as you have here of the university building. Larry, any comment on that?
Yeah, I want people to kind of think about this, because you don't normally think when you see a little puddle on the ground, oh, that's going to be a great photo. But then you see the finished image from that example that Dr. T was showing, and you're like, that is amazing. And start to look at puddles differently, and you'll find that you have the ability to capture some amazing images if the puddle is in a position where you can capture a big reflection of something. But when you look at the two images side by side that Dr. T was just showing, and you look at the one on the right that's intended to show you the behind the scenes where the camera is on the Platypod down by the puddle, in your mind, take the camera out of that picture and you just look at, it's a puddle. It's unimpressive. And you're taking a picture and it kind of looks like, it must have rained a little while ago. But then you see what the camera captured on the left and you're like, wow, that's breathtaking. It's artwork versus, it's a puddle on a walkway, a walk path that I'm going down, and it looks unimpressive. And so it's just a huge difference between those two images.
Thank you, Larry. And in a minute, I'm going to talk about another tool that you might want to use on vacation, which has nothing to do with Platypod, but stick around for a second or two. All right, next image over here is my image. No, it's not Paris. Larry, where is this?
Let's see. Is it Sanford, Florida?
No, this is Tokyo. So this was taken from an observation deck in Tokyo. They've got their own little Eiffel Tower there. And I wanted to get a long exposure with light trails. If you look in the lower right-hand side, you'll see light trails in the street from the cars. So you have to do a super long exposure. But one of the problems of shooting through a window, as in this observation tower, is that you're going to catch reflections off the windows. Now, for stability, I just took my Platypod with my camera. I set it onto the windowsill. They had a rather large windowsill. Okay, I had my stability there. And for super stability, if you don't have a remote trigger, just put this on a self-timer, push the self-timer, walk back, and let the picture do let the camera do its thing. But one little tool I want to show you that I picked up on a Kickstarter, and as you know, Platypods, we love Kickstarters. We've launched most of our major products on Kickstarter. This is something I picked up from Ultimate Lens Hood, ULH. If you look up on B&H Photo, Ultimate Lens Hood, write that down, you'll find this ridiculous-looking lens hood, but it's an incredible tool. All you have to do is stretch it over your camera lens, and it stretches pretty easily. It's like a silicone rubber thing. Again, this is not our product. I get nothing from this. But you can then take this, when you press it against glass, it forms like a suction cup, and then you can angle your camera around. So if you know you're going to be going to an observation deck, or You want to shoot the Hope Diamond in the Smithsonian Institute, and they're probably not going to like it if you scratch up the glass there with your lens. Or sometimes if you're even shooting in a airplane, when the lights are on inside, this is a really great tool to use. Now, the image that I shot there, I did not yet have this tool. What I did, and I couldn't show it in the image because I couldn't hold up everything at the same time, is I took a sweater and I wrapped it around the camera to do this. It wasn't the most efficient way. It wasn't the best way. So that's a nice little tip that I wanted to give everybody. Again, Ultimate Lens Hood. They run about $30 or $40 on B&H.
You know where I can see
These
that?
were taken in...
Wait.
Sorry.
You know where I can see that being used is aquariums.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That seems like a great idea for
Absolutely.
aquariums.
Especially if the lights are on indoors, you'll get a great shot in an aquarium with this. Yep, absolutely. I think I'm going to do that next time I go to my office. Okay, we have a beautiful aquarium there. So this was in Shanghai, and I'm just showing you this to mention the top pano image I actually did with my iPhone. And I did it with a Platypod, and I'll tell you why. My hands are not that steady holding an iPhone without anything to support it. If you're going to shoot an iPhone pano, one little tip I'm going to give you is don't wave it across with your hand, because you'll invariably angle or move it in the wrong direction. If you're going to, hold it close to your body and pivot with your feet.
That's a good
But
idea.
a better way to do this is, if you've got your Platypod with you, which you should always have when you're shooting, you put on one of our square jellyfish. I have this easily mounted with my Arca disc on there, and then that goes onto our tripod head so easily, or really any Arca compatible tripod head. Now I can put my iPhone on here and get a super smooth pan using our panning function on there. So that image in there was done with a Platypod, and the pan really encompasses everything about 200 degrees from my left all the way to the right. And in Shanghai, one side of the Yangtze River has the new part of Shanghai with all kinds of LED lights on there. The other side is the Bund, which has all these federal looking buildings, and you catch really some gorgeous imagery. I think this is our last photo from Peter Treadway to show an abstract of this bridge. It's the Samuel Beckett Bridge over the River Liffey in Dublin, Ireland. And what a gorgeous shot. The water is smooth and creamy in here, long exposure, and just this beautiful graphic. But if you look up close, you'll see all the lines in here are tack sharp. Please also go to platypod.com and sign up for the newsletter, and you will get to see plenty of our specials as they come up over the holiday season. And Larry, I think we're reaching towards the end of the time. Do we have a few minutes for some questions?
Yes, so let's go ahead and jump into the questions that we have from our viewers. The first one says, "Hi, Larry and Larry. I was experiencing trouble with losing my spikes, which kept coming off when I took them to the beach. I would carry the Platypod Max in the bag, but I would notice that the spikes loosened. And so thoughts on that, Dr. T?"
Well, we do have replacement spike sets. You can get 4 spikes for about $12, $13 at platypod.com. One nice thing about the Platypod Extreme is that will almost never happen. But one other thing that you can do, I would suggest, is take a broad rubber band, and you can, if you're really going to be knocking around with this, just put it around. But even so, the magnets in here are pretty strong, and with, reasonably careful usage, you should be able to hang on to these spikes for a long time. But if you do lose it, do that. The other thing is, if you ever have a problem with the rubber caps, are glued on in place, but once in a while, if you're really knocking around, a rubber cap can get dislodged. For $5, you can get a new set of rubber caps for this. And I would suggest put a little bit of Gorilla Glue on the last 3 threads of the spike before you put on the cap, and that'll stay in place for a long, long time.
Sounds good. Okay, next question is from Sassy, and it says, what are the other pieces that come in the Extreme kit? So I think that's kind of an open-ended question.
Okay, so the Extreme kit, do I have one? Well, it comes with a carrying wallet, and it also comes with all the spikes in place. It comes with this little cross nut adapter, and that allows you to put 1/4" 20 items onto here, and a little carabiner to carry this with. So I hope that answers that question.
It does. Dr. T, would you do me the favor of showing people the different angles that the little spiked feet can go? Because you've shown them splayed out and in, but there's more than just that.
I would be happy to. And I think that makes a very important point, because let's say you're on a steep incline, and we actually had Dave Williams do this once. I think there's a photo of it on our website, where he was in Iceland in a cave, and he had his camera perched on an ice wall at about 45 degrees, and all you have to do is you can take the spikes. There's several positions here. You point all of them backwards. Now you can put them up on an incline. I think, Larry, you have this in your teaching video at the Platypod website. So if you have like a vertical concrete railing, you can put this like that also. The other nice thing about this is I like, just like you saw Dave did kind of horizontally on a railing, you can hang this on a chair very easily.
Oh, yeah.
Or you can put it on top of a door. If you want to protect the chair, just put one of our rubber mats that's available in the multi-accessory kit right over the chair, and you can hang this. I've even hung this from my car window to be able to do that. And last but not least, before the last, the spikes also go vertically like this, so that you can use the rubber tips down. And I don't know if you can see, there's a little kind of notch in here so that they park themselves in place, so that you can put these in your pocket or your camera bag, and it's not going to tear against anything. One other little thing, people said, oh, my Platypod looks bent. It's not bent, it's just an optical illusion. It is perfectly flat. So I hope that answers that question. Anything else, Larry?
Yeah, a couple others. We have one that says, I'm using a Nikon P1000 for my main camera. Do you sell a mount for the Platypod that can hold my camera still? It weighs 3 pounds, 2 ounces, and I've been unable to find a mount that won't move. So I'm guessing we're talking about an Arca plate of some kind onto maybe the Benro IN00 ball head.
Gosh, you know what? I would have you contact us directly, because you should not be having that kind of an issue. I'm again on the close-up, using our Platypod disc. You should be able to have a stable mount on here.
Yep.
But it doesn't sound like I'm answering your question. So contact us, service@platypod.com, and I'd be happy to delve into that a little further with you. If necessary, we can set up a phone call.
Yeah, that's from Karen in Missouri. And Karen, I would encourage you to do that. Reach out to the folks at Platypod, and they will answer your question. And so will I. I'm happy to help as well. Okay, just two more. One says, I have a Platypod Max, and this is from Maida. I have a Platypod Max, and I would like one with a smaller profile. So, Dr. T, can you show the size difference between the Ultra and the Extreme?
I can.
Also, are there spikes available for the Ultra?
So the Ultra does come with its own set of spikes within a little wallet. I don't have one right here now, but it comes with the same 4 spikes that you have with the Platypod Extreme, but they do have to be threaded in manually when you're going to use it. The Ultra is the size, almost the size of my old iPhone. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And the Max is more the size of maybe an iPad mini. So this is about 5 by 8 inches. I would say for most general use, the Extreme. Extreme is the way to go, because it'll give you the ultimate stability. But if you want to go super compact, or you're going to use a smaller camera, or even just an iPhone and want to use, let's say, a little ball head like our Benro IN00 that we get from Benro. Mighty little ball head, very inexpensive. I think this is about $60. And it'll hold your camera real tight. It does not really have a panning function on it, but for general support, this makes a great little combination for you. And you can just hang the whole thing off of your belt if you want to go with that. Good for cameras and lenses, with lenses under 900 grams, which is about 2 pounds. For the bigger lenses, especially the ultra wides, I would recommend using the Extreme, as well as if you're going to shoot on sand or soft ground.
All righty. And
question there, Larry?
Yeah, one final one. And this is from Rui Lopez. Do you ship to Canada?
We do.
That was easy.
You'll pay for customs and shipping. You can check out on our website, but we do ship to Canada. Yes.
Very good, Dr. T. Thank you so much.
We ship all over the world, by the way, Larry.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But Rui only asked about Canada, and that was the Canada answer. Yes.
Yes.
Dr. T, thank you so much for sharing all these behind the scenes. I love that. These are great images, and then you get to see the behind the scenes that these masterful photographers used in capturing these images, and how people use the Platypod and the different models of Platypod. I have them all, and I use them all in different circumstances, and some are permanently in my car and camera case and different camera bags. And I mean, I've always got a Platypod with me. This is mine right here, right now. So I've always got a Platypod with me. But the point is that the Platypod can travel so well. It makes travel photography and portable photography a much, much better experience. And it's the best little tripod alternative on the ground.
And I want to invite all my friends out there, if you would like us to look at your images, maybe post them on our website or on our blog post. You have a great story. Take a background shot of your setup with showing in the background what you're taking an image of. If you get a great image, we monitor Instagram and Facebook, or just please send them to us, and we'll be happy to feature your best photos at platypod.com and our social networking. I want to thank Skip Cohen for putting together this beautiful slideshow, and the rest of my team, Shiv Verma, Hilmar Smith, my lovely wife Minna, and all our friends, and Erica, and all of you have contributed to this. I hope you all got to learn something. Thank you for joining us. And I think we've gone a little over time. Jason, please don't be angry. Thank you for being there in the control room for us. And thank you, Christina and Scott Kelby, of course.
Well, that's it for this evening, folks. Thank you, Dr. T.
And thank you, Larry Becker.
My pleasure. I always like being a part of this and a part of the Travel Photography Conference, which will be coming back to you tomorrow morning with all kinds of great additional Track A and Track B courses, and of course, some of those breakout sessions. And if you come up with even more questions, feel free to keep asking those questions. And of course, you can reach out to Platypod directly when you have questions about their stuff. Thank you guys so much. Have a great evening, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow.